Well, we're here at the CCA workbench and
Get fired up.
This is your stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, just like the fellow just said, things are going to be getting good offshore Texas in October, November, all the way up until December sometimes. If the cold fronts don't come down, it just keeps going and going and going. It gets better and better. It's a lot nicer. We're going to go through all the generic things. First off, most questions I get is how fast do you have to go? Well, you're going to be going between 4 and 8 knots, I would say, most of the time. If you're going to be using dead baits, you want to go slower, and you can go a little faster if you have something to put in front of your dead bait that keeps them together. An island lure or like Sea Star, any of these island lure type lures that you put in front of your bait. It makes the bait last longer, so you can go a little bit faster. But if you're not using anything in front of it, you want to go between 4 and 6. Never more than that if you're using just plain ballyhoos.
And why is that?
Well, because they start to fall apart.
It washes them out.
It washes them out.
Correct.
You're moving faster through the water. If you put this on the front of it, it makes them last a little longer, and you can actually go a little faster. If you have really good baits, though, sometimes you can go a lot faster. But it depends. Usually, if you're using frozen bait, you're going to have to slow down a little bit. Now, a wide range like this lure can go a lot of different speeds, from 4 all the way up to 14 knots.
I see this lure multiple times a year. You love this lure, wide range.
Well, if you get on any boat in the world that's fishing offshore from the furthest little backwater of Africa all the way to the South Pacific, you're going to get on the boat and you'll find a wide range on it.
Versatility.
Well, it's impossible to pull wrong. Like I said, it'll pull straight as an arrow at 4 knots or at 14 knots in whatever sea state you're in. And that's one of the big things about speed that when people ask me how fast can you go, well, how big are the seas? What have you got back there? How much does it weigh? These are all factors that go into how fast you can go. But as a rule of thumb, you say between 6 and 8 knots, and you don't want your stuff to tumble. If it stays in the water, that's fast enough. You don't want to go so fast that your stuff starts to tumble, because you can cover distance. The faster you can go without having the stuff come out of the water, the more ground you're covering. And the more ground you cover, the more bites you're going to get. The next most often question I'm asked is, how far back do you put stuff? Well, again, it depends on the size of the boat you're on. A lot of big boats, they'll put stuff way back, but fish aren't afraid of the boat. You should only put stuff back as far as you could see it. If you're not fishing for tuna fish where you have to put stuff way back to get a bite, just to get out of the tunas, because the tunas get hammered a lot, so you have to put your stuff way back. You should never put lures further back than the captain can see them. Because if he can see them, then he can tell the anglers down below, hey, we got a fish up behind this bait. Take a look at it.
I got a question for you. You have a variety of sizes here, Dave. Do you put the bigger lures closer to the boat?
Yeah.
Go through that spread.
Well, when you're putting your baits out, first off, you put your long baits out first, and then you work your way back to the boat, so you don't have to go through all your stuff. And your little stuff usually goes on your outriggers, because for one, when you got something pulling on an outrigger, it's pulling on an outrigger. And if it's something big, it's going to be pulling hard. And if it's heavy seas, it's going to be pulling harder when it's digging into the waves. So you want the stuff on the outsides and the long baits to be a little lighter. The big stuff you can pull inside off a short rigger or from a transom clip. And that gives a really low angle for a big bait like that. You can put a hook in that thing. That's rigged to be a teaser right now. But you can pull this off the short corner off a 130, a bent butt, and have it running off a transom clip so that the toe angle is real low and that big lure will stay in the water really close to the boat. And a big fish will come up and nail that thing when it's 15 feet from the transom, 25 feet from the transom at the most even. And those big fish will come up and get those little stuff. You want to make sure when you're pulling stuff that you keep everything equidistant. When your spread is out, your short baits, no matter how far out they are, you want your short baits to be parallel to each other, so that when you make a turn, those two baits will never cross.
Correct.
Because they're the exact same length out the back of the boat. You can spin around and get another bite. If you pull all your stuff in when you get a bite, you're not going to get a double header. So let it hang out.
Next time
make
you
a turn.
You got to talk faster, right, Brie?